Hello, everybody. It's Kateri,
And Owen.
and welcome to Soothsayer's Tea, the feature episode for The Hermit. And we're going to be talking about oversharing and why you shouldn't.
Yeah, and initiatory practices and stuff like that, you know?
Secret things,
Yeah.
quiet things.
Stuff you're not allowed to know. Like stuff that's
Yes,
it's not something you can learn. Sorry, Kane.
we are currently being initiated into this podcast with
Mm-hmm.
this episode.
Cult.
Cult.
Yeah. I
Cult.
mean, let's be honest. Let's be upfront.
It's all about cults. So, yes, there is definitely an uptick I've noticed. Well, it's been kind of on the down low. I think that when it comes to witchcraft in general, it's kind of hit its peak last year. I think we're actually being kind of see a lot of
Yeah,
people pull out of it, which is
I agree.
not a
With the
bad thing.
COVID-19 stuff and like with the pandemic and everything, everyone was stuck inside and everyone was just on their little phones scrolling through TikTok and going, yeah, I
And
want to do
putting
that.
dirt in jars. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now everybody's kind of pulling out of it a little bit, which is a good thing because I would hope that their dabble in the occult kind of help them through darker times. And now that they can go to festivals, they can fuck right off and do that.
I mean, yes, okay, absolutely. I'd also definitely think that like the community in general wasn't necessarily prepared for that influx of people. Because like as much of a like community as it is in quotation marks, it's also very closed off. It's a very like as a group of people, we're not very welcoming. Like I like to say that we're kind of welcoming, but we hold a lot of stuff close to our chest.
Yeah, and there is for good reason. And I think the reason why is that I know there's like jokes about like the leader of witchcraft or the president of witchcraft, but the reality is that there's everybody's craft is so very, very personal and very, very almost solitary. I'm sure people have heard the term solitary Wiccan thrown around quite a bit, but the reality is that I would think that majority of pagans that I know are solitary.
Yeah, I mean, same, or at least in very, very small groups,
Yeah.
like
So
families.
exactly. And when we do see again, we've had complaints about witch talk, and I don't want to keep banging that drum, but that was almost its own kind of little
Even though we bring
community.
it up every
Although
single
we bring it
episode.
up every time, and I think the reason why I bring it up all the time is because that when people approach us, is that they're always approaching us with that lens, because that is their kind of introduction to paganism. Because I would say before 2020, nobody spoke about this, and now not just I'm not even saying online, I'm talking in real life. I get people approaching me almost on the daily about it,
Wait,
which I'm
really?
not. Yeah, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that I need to know what lens they're coming from, and they're often coming from this kind of insular little community online, where it's all about like crystal baths and doing jar spells and
I will see. I will say though, I did see someone on TikTok get into like a giant amethyst bath, like a big purple bath, and I thought that looked hilarious. Like you would slip and die, but like imagine walking into your bathroom and there's just like this giant like purple crystal bath waiting for you. Like that sounds amazing. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is that there is quite a bit deeper than what you see in those little communities because the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because it's no secret that that community kind of came out of the pandemic and these people were really early in their practice, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I think that I definitely grew quite a bit over the pandemic just because I had a lot of time to kind of establish my practice a little deeper, a little more rooted. However, I'm seeing a lot of misinformation when it comes to initiatory practices and then oversharing. Oversharing is a huge issue.
Yeah. Yeah, or even people who don't sort of realize that something has a lot more depth to it than they think, and then they think that they know like something about it when they don't, and then they share that, and then they get a very large following, and then a lot of misinformation gets spread around. I think I think that's also kind of a problem.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
I think it's really important for us to kind of establish what exactly is an initiatory practice, because I think that a lot of people think initiatory just means that they're taught by somebody else. Um, it's not that simple, or it can be not as likely as people think. A good
Hmm.
example of actually a very, very, very strongly initiative religion is might blow some people's minds right now, but is Catholicism.
Drum roll.
Yeah, Catholicism. Because for you to be initiated into the Catholic Church, you have to start with a baptism. And in most cases, at least all the people that I know, who you hear that often raised Catholic, and the reason why they're raised Catholic is because they were initiated as infants into the religion.
Yeah, literally before the age of one. And I think that's a very common experience. And because it's so commonplace, people sort of don't recognize it for what it is, which
Mhm.
is a religious initiation.
Yeah, absolutely. And even to, if you know anybody who's like Catholic and they have like a Catholic wedding, like that's like one of the more advanced steps to the whole initiatory practice, because you have to have,
Hmm.
um, I'm racking my head
First
right now.
communion,
First
baptism,
communion,
communion, and confirmation.
confirmation, yeah,
Yeah.
and then you can get married in the church, like,
Hmm. You need all
um,
three to get married in
exactly.
the Catholic Church. Yeah.
Which is funny because my parents are very, very strictly Catholic, but they're those types of Catholics that, of course, didn't agree with the church because they weren't conservative enough. So I didn't get my full sacraments, and now my mother's having a meltdown that I'm not going to get married in the church. And I'm like, well, whose fault is that? Which is funny. But
That is actually very, very funny. I didn't know that about you, and I think that is something I'm going to hold over your head that I am innately more Christian than you,
yeah, you
trying
are.
my hardest.
You are
But
more Christian than I am, and that
yeah.
is no secret.
But
But
even I'm
that,
glad that you sort of brought that up about your parents because I think people breaking away from the church is actually becoming a lot more commonplace, and we're seeing a lot of sort of Catholic symbology and like mysticism outside of where we would normally see it. And this is like, I mean, like we've been seeing it for a very long time, but now there's a lot clearer of a distinction.
yeah. And I think it's just it's an when people talk about initiatory practices, again, there's a priest that does this, and that priest has to go through a lifetime. I'm not talking about a lifetime like they're working at like McDonald's down the street while doing this. Like they actually go to abbeys, they live places where they go through a lifetime of training and sacraments to be able to get to priesthood. It's
I know
not.
we're 8 minutes into recording this, but I did just have to Google is initiatory a word because we've said it so many times. But yeah, I
I'm
mean,
almost
like you
positive it
see
is.
that with a lot. No, it is. It's okay. We're good. But I yeah, exactly. Like priests and stuff like that, and people who will like initiate you into a religion or a practice usually always have a lot of experience behind them. It's not just sharing knowledge; it's sharing sort of experience and then sort of creating a like spiritual connection in quotation marks, depending on what you're up to.
Yeah. And I might be speaking slightly out of turn here, but from what I understand, Wicca is also
You are shut
initiatory
up.
as well. Am I? Good.
No.
No, Wicca is actually initiative as well. It's an
Yeah.
initiative for religion. Now, there is solitary Wiccans, but the thing is that to actually be part of a coven, it actually has to be a recognized coven.
Yeah, and I mean, even the thing about that is originally like solitary, like Wicca, I guess, didn't really exist. And it's just sort of, it's more of a modern invention made by sort of like eclectic paganism and sort of like what we would know from released practices because a lot of this information is still kept like secretly. And you need to be
Yeah.
initiated to understand it and like, well, not understand it, but have it shared with you.
Yeah. And from what I understand, it was Scott Cunningham was actually one of the big catalysts for the solitary Wiccan.
Hmm.
And from what I understand, don't quote me on this because I might be pulling it out my ass, but I know that there was a kind of bit of a big uproar when he started releasing his books because they were just like, you can't talk about that because these people are not initiated. Now, with that being said, I know that Wicca has definitely pulled the stick out of their ass over the last like 20 years or so, and they're a lot less worked up about the secrets being out. Just because for initiatory religion, They didn't really have a whole lot of secrets that would needed to be protected, really.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not like it was this sort of newfound concept when it was first created. Like, it basically just evolved from Golden Dawn practices and sort of like regionals, like folk magic type things, and then ceremonial practices, and kind of like melded them together and called it thousands of years old. But we moved. It's not, and it's not anything new. And I like not to be like, well, at least from what I understand, obviously I'm also not like a Wiccan, so I don't know for sure. Maybe it is something new and I will never know, but like, not like disrespectfully, but it's not it's not anything new. That doesn't make it less like special. It's just
No,
not new.
I, I would think that Wicca was probably, again, the catalyst for a lot of current, like eclectic pagan practices nowadays.
100%.
There is things that I do in my practice that definitely come from Wicca, which a lot of people don't realize is a ceremonial style of practicing. It's not, yes, they have the whole inspiration from nature and stuff like that, but it's super ceremonial, man. Like it's not as blood and bones as people thinks it is. It's very much so a hierarchy with like a high priest, high priestess, and all that. Um, which I find it's funny because the more that I get to know about paganism, the more I'm just like, wow, that's more like an organized religion than anything. Like Wicca is very
Paganism.
organized. No, Wicca. Wicca's very organized. Yeah, paganism's like it's a wild root, but I
Hmm.
think Wicca is the most organized of it all. It's a very organized religion, and organized religions are going to have things that you have to initiate into. And I know we said that word a million times, but what other word are we going to use?
I don't know, but I think we should create one because I cannot say that word, especially today. It's not coming out. Initiatory.
An
It
initiative
has
or
too many
whatever.
vowels. Um, but
Getting the
yeah,
club card, getting the club card, getting the stamp on the club card. You have to have
yeah.
this many stamps to get the high priest,
Oh my god.
to get the
But
bishop.
yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of if we want to talk about sort of oversharing a little bit, um, the like effect on like society's concepts of like what Wicca is has been huge. Wait, I skipped the start of that sentence. Oh my god.
Love it.
Um, the information like sort of being leaked like that in the way by Scott Cunningham has greatly influenced like the general public's idea and like our ideas of what Wicca sort of is, um, in both a good way and a bad way. And I feel like that's true for all, or at least most practices that I like don't have a lot of information on. The little information that is had, people sort of take and run with.
Yeah. And I think the other issue is that when it comes to a lot of these religions, these practices, keep in mind that, let's be very, very frank here. A lot of religions were created not for personal betterment, but they were created as a political tool or control. And when you have Christianity as king, right, and they have a lot of
Oh yeah.
political control, you're going to have, and when I say Christianity, I mean like in Western worlds, obviously. Um, there is going to be some counter religions that are going to try to challenge that. Frig, even in Christianity, we got the Baptists, we got the Protestants, they all fight amongst themselves, let alone anything on the outside. So, with the turn of this, of the 20th century, am I saying that right? It's like the 1900s. Yeah.
Okay,
Around,
I honestly don't know because I need to talk about this for a second. Ever since I was a child, I have not been able to tell like what century it is because it confuses me so much. Like, why is the 20th century the 1900s?
yeah, I know, right? Um,
Like, what the fuck is that?
we are so professional here.
No, but I'm
Okay.
serious. No, I'm serious. I need someone
Okay.
to explain this to me.
We're gonna have to Google it afterwards. But yeah, around the 1900s, that's when there was a lot of push for Western like mysticism because they were trying to create counter religions, mostly for the sake of power. And when you are looking for powers, political power, things behind closed doors, you
Mhm.
are going to end up falling into basically very, very closed off like religions. right? So when we do see online people talking about closed practices, they're often talking in the case of like social aspects when it comes to religious practices for our people of color or minorities. And that is very different than what a initiatory practice is, because on the flip side of the coin, there's a lot of times people are saying, I've been initiated in this thing, but they actually fucking haven't, just because
Mm-hmm.
somebody down the road taught them how to do it. Or, and then this is going to be a bit of a hot take. This is going to be a bit of a hot take, and I don't mean
15
this
minutes in.
15 minutes in, just
And we already have
because,
a hot take.
yeah,
Okay.
just because it's a family practice does not mean that you are properly initiated in it.
Yeah. I mean, for sure.
Right.
I don't, yeah, that's not that hot of a take.
It's not
Come
that
on.
hard to take, but no,
You can
I
do
know a
better.
lot of people get really worked up about that because, like, my family taught this, and I'm of this family line, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually um, properly taught how to do it, and that's can get really heated for some people. Um, and I understand why it can get heated for people because that is something that they were kind of raised with. But again, if there is a chance, because when it came to my family, when they pulled away from the Catholic Church, from Catholicism, they didn't become like atheists or normal people. No, they went into a Catholic cult. Like
I love that for them.
they went
Wow.
extremely bad, where there was people that were claiming to be priests doing all the sacraments, doing baptisms and all this stuff, but they were not recognized by the church, and it was blasphemy. So just because it's something that was taught to you, or it was like it's a little secret fringe thing, does not actually necessarily mean it's right. And I mean this in the case of like like Jewish mysticism, in the case of hoodoo. There might be a case that your family practices may not actually be properly initiated, or you're doing your own thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that people need to kind of relax a little bit when they think that they have all the answers, because you actually probably don't.
Hmm.
Actually, I don't think
And even
anybody of
if
us
you
do.
were, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because even if you were, like, sort of, I guess, properly initiated, there's still, like, gaps in your knowledge. Like, you're still a human being. Like, you're not going to know the answer to everything just because you've gone through a certain process that somebody hasn't. You might have access to more information or more resources, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're using them better or that you are aware and that you've done this research at all.
Yeah. And I think we've had that conversation during our cults episode. Is a cult can be three or more people, right? There's family cults out there. And no,
Yeah.
I'm not implying that your practices that was taught to you by your grandmother is a cult or is wrong. I'm not implying that. But what I am telling you is that slow your roll a little bit, especially when it comes to either one, sharing those practices, or two, not sharing those practices and pretending that they're special, and they actually might not be that fucking special.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I just think people need to stop talking about it so much. That's my hot take. I think we all need to stop talking so much, including both of us, especially when it comes to stuff like this. Like, it's not a flex to share something like that. It's not like to be like, oh, my great 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 grandmother has passed this secret down for generations. It's like, okay, I do not care. Like, I literally do not care.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to break this to you, but this matters very much to you, and I am very glad that you have something to hold on to. But to everyone else, literally, just stop speaking. Like, just shut up.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
no one cares.
Which blood needs to stop? And again, I'm not
Yes.
saying this just to like fight with people. I'm just saying because I'm like, listen, it's okay to be normal.
Hmm.
Um,
And
I enjoy very much so being normal because it gives me the freedom to do what I want.
hmm and even like with that, like on the surface, like it's just sort of like, I guess, a little bit like egotistical or like a little bit just like braggy or whatever. But like that very quickly leads into sort of other rhetorics where it comes to like blood quantum and stuff like that, and saying that like, oh well, because I have this like perceived power because of all these generations of people teaching me these things, um there's now like using that to hold power over someone else and sort of manipulate them like that, when that is also obviously not a good thing, and something that we actually have seen historically in very large religions for a very long time.
Yeah, and like I can go into my personal like practice when it comes to
If you
my
want.
well, I'm not going to go too deep because again, it's personal to me, but like when it comes to indigenous practices, there's lots of things that I'm not initiated into, and I'm not going to claim that I deserve it or I am entitled to it because I'm not, just because I'm Mi'kmaq, that I'm not entitled to these things just because I am this one type of individual or
Mhm.
this particular race.
Because of your
This,
like just because of your genetics.
yeah, it doesn't quite
Yeah.
work that way. And I don't quite like I would never share those practices because they're not mine to share. And when I say they're not mine to share, they're I have my practices and I choose not to share it. But I find that a lot of times people get caught up. They're like, okay, because I'm A, I can do B, and because I can do B, that I'm going to tell you about C, even though I know nothing about C, but because
Hmm.
I'm A, I can tell you about C. No, you shouldn't be sharing anything that you haven't done personally in your, whether it be social practice or your racial practice. You shouldn't be sharing anything unless you've done it. And the thing is that again, unless you're initiated in a lot of these practices, you should be shutting your hole. I don't care if that you feel entitled to it just because your family is part of a particular practice. Unless you're the one who's actually doing it, you shouldn't be sharing it. And honestly, you probably shouldn't be sharing it because a lot of times when you get initiated in things, you kind of often take a vow of secrecy. And I know that's quite common along a lot of these practices. So I don't
Hmm.
understand why it's being shared. Other than
Yeah.
for clout, I know why it's being shared.
Mm.
Actually,
I
I
mean,
know
yeah.
exactly why it's being clout. Like it's
Y-
being shared is for clout. But
yeah.
I find the only reason why they're sharing it for clout is because they haven't done it. They just think that they're entitled to it.
But yeah, I mean I think personally that a lot of people, what will happen is they will make friends with people and then they will sort of like share maybe experiences or stuff like that, and then they will think that they know more than they do.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. Again, I don't want to speak too much on it just because these are not my practices, but um, for like indigenous practices, for example, again, I've seen people go to elders, get stories, and then start telling those stories like it's their own.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
just like, well, just because you were told doesn't mean that it's for everybody else.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
exactly. Like just because someone has shared something with you doesn't
yeah,
mean that you should be sharing that with everyone you fucking meet on the street.
yeah. And then that's when they start like, well, I was initiated into this. It's just like, well, then if you were initiated, you should know to shut your hole. But I think,
Hmm.
honestly, we've beat the head horse on this one. What I'm seeing a lot, so this has been kind of like big brain podcast for the last 23 minutes. What I really want to talk about is little witchlings sharing their spells and sharing their curses and sharing their love spells. What a terrible fucking idea, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like my favorite thing more than anything, listen, I do some nasty magic sometimes, some bad medicine, and nothing fucking gets me off more than knowing exactly what's in their cute little self love spell because they blast it all over the internet. I'm just like, give me every fucking ingredient so I can counter it. Ooh, it's hot. I love
Yeah.
it.
I mean that's the thing as well. Like a lot of like the basics of stuff of like why people don't share things is because if you have certain beliefs or something like that, um people will be able to like I guess spiritually attack you in quotation marks, but you know what I mean if they know what
Yeah.
you are you doing within your practice. Like that's a lot of the shared beliefs.
Yeah, and the thing is that some people will be like, "Well, I don't believe that, so it's not going to happen to me." And then the next like video or next post that they have is them doing protection spells. Like, well, if you don't believe in it, why do you need your protection spell, bitch?
Yeah. I mean
Right?
it's just not very well thought through.
Yeah, it's just like you're basically saying, I don't need to lock my door, but I'm going to put up an alarm system. Why don't you just
Yeah,
go
that's
lock your
actually a
door?
great analogy. Yes, that's exactly what it's like. Um, and it's just very, like the thing is to me, I remember someone, I was added into like a little group chat with a bunch of people a while ago, and what they were saying was like basically like calling me a grifter because I don't post stuff like that all over like my social media. And I was just kind of sitting there and I
What?
was like, why would I? Like, why? Like, if that's not something that particularly interests me or something that I don't want to share, why would I post it all over my social media? Like, why does, and also, why does it matter to you? Like, why are
Also,
you so pressed
that's
right now?
that's hilarious because you literally do a podcast talking about grifting.
Yes, yes, I know. I do see the irony there. But
Sorry.
we move, okay?
Yeah, and that's which is funny because you know what? Listen, let's agree to disagree. If they believe that this is grifting and what they're doing is not grifting because they're showing the universe every stinking step of their fucking process, then by all means, cool. I think that we're going to have a very strong difference of opinion on what grift is. Um,
A very strong difference of opinion.
it's a very nice way for me to say that. But yeah, now that we're past the snarky stage, let's really kind of break down why you shouldn't be sharing your personal practice. And I notice that a lot of creators that I respect on the online space, they don't overshare how to do things. Like they'll do like some basic things, but I know for a fact because I do speak with some of these people that their actual practice is a lot more in depth and a lot more intense.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing as well. Like with anything in all aspects of life, if you're going to be sort of like recording and posting it online, you're going to be capturing the more like glamorous aspects of it, and that doesn't like that rule applies here too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's I think it's very interesting again showing spell work for me. And again, I don't want to think anybody think that I'm hyper malicious by any means. But all I can think of is that when
Okay.
I no, I know, but when I do see spell work and people like really deeply go into spell work on the socials, all I can think of, I'm like, if I had a beef with this person, this would be the easiest thing. It's like telling people your fucking bank card pin. And they're just like, well, and don't
Hmm.
do it. It's just like, if I was malicious, I could go after this person so
Hmm.
easily. I could break down all of their protections. I could break down all of their protective spells, all their self love spells, everything that they're posting. I can undo so easily.
Yeah, and I
And
mean that is a huge thing for me as well, especially with people who will like read a book about something or like read a book giving them a tutorial on how to do something and then take it specifically from that without like applying their own context or anything and not really like understanding why they're doing something because that's just weak shit.
yeah,
Sorry, but like it's yeah, I also don't really like those kind of books, if that
spell
makes
books.
sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't
I'm kind of like,
mind them as much. But I just again, and the thing is that the counter I hear is just like, well, again, I don't have to worry about that because my control is too big or whatever. And it's like, nah, or I'm too powerful, blah blah blah. If you think that the things you do are able to, I don't want to say manipulate, that's not the right word. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for when you do spell work? Um, influence,
um
influence.
yes.
So if you're when you're doing spell work and you're influencing things, right? What makes you think that something can't counter influence that? Especially when that person knows all your ingredients.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem very like well thought through to me. And I think honestly, like a lot of the people that are posting this sort of stuff online aren't actually going to be doing it in real life with sort of like spiritual attachments to it, and it's more so just for, I guess, the aesthetics and sort of like getting people to like, you know, give them their love and money, mostly their money,
Yeah.
by doing these things and making them pretty on purpose. And it's
And
just kind of like, mm,
listen, entertainment's entertainment. I think we've had a conversation before. I respect the hustle, right? I absolutely do respect the hustle when it comes to things like
mm-hmm.
that. Um, the issue that I have is that then you have people who are following along and doing that. And at
Yeah.
that point, it's like, it's for me, is that the working is already poisoned at that point. There's already poison in the well. So why would I want to do that? And I'm not talking about like when they're saying, hey, these are herbs that are very good for protections. I'm saying when they're doing step by step, this is how you make the cake, right?
hmm Like it's fine if it's just some sort of like example, but eh, like I feel like I've said it 100,000 fucking times, but like actually showing exactly what you're doing or taking it exactly from a book or sort of historical academic source, it's just like why are you posting that online instead of just the original source? Like just
Yeah.
literally just post the source. I
And
mean, it's not that
again,
difficult.
I absolutely respect the hustle, but what I'm getting at, let's just say, I don't know, I have jars in front of me right now. So just say jar spell, and then you stick a bunch of herbs in there, and you're like, okay, rosemary. And then you're putting thyme in there, and then you're putting rose petals in there, right?
It
Again,
sounds like it would make a bath smell really, really nice.
I know, right? Add some like eucalyptus. Anyway, so you put a bunch of stuff in there, right? And that's nice and cute. But what ends up happening is that now somebody's going to follow along with that, right? And if that person's really excited about their spell because you know what, it worked, fantastic, great, they tell one of their friends, and then their friend starts doing it, and before you know it, it gets across to Becky, the bitch of the fucking high school, and now Becky is also a practitioner
Becky.
and knows everything about your spell now. Again, Becky's probably not very smart. Becky's probably just going to try to stick you in the freezer. But if Becky was a smart practitioner, they would very easily just counter your spell and fuck with your work. So I don't understand the appeal of
What the
sharing.
fuck is this? Hogwarts behind the scenes? Like what are you talking about?
I don't know. But I think this is more or less for people who are, I don't know, in the public eye, I
hmm
guess, a little bit. I
Yeah.
find that the big practitioners in public eye, um, they don't share their, again, their A B C D E F G like steps to their spell work. They're just like, hey, rosemary, really good for
Good for
protection,
this.
good for
Yeah,
this,
exactly.
right? They
hmm
don't really specify exactly what's in their, whether it be their protection bags or on their candles. If they are, they're basically, I can guarantee, let's just say they do a whole video or whatever about how to dress a candle. I can guarantee they take that candle and yeet it out the door once they're done with it, because at that point it's tainted.
A fire hazard?
It was a fire hazard and
Yeah,
it's tainted.
I mean, that's a really interesting perspective. I hadn't really thought of that. Like, do people who are doing that stuff online and who are like more religious and spiritual in a way use the product that they created for the camera, or do they throw it out and start again?
I mean, I would personally, but again, maybe I'm being like this my way is the best way, which is could very well because I'm an arrogant asshole. But
Just a little bit.
a little bit.
Just a little
You're cute. Listen, I know
bit.
exactly who I am as a
Teeny,
person.
teeny little
I'm an
bit.
arrogant ass. But what I'm getting at is that I am very protective of what I do and what I work with. And it's not because I'm paranoid and I think people are going to be out to get me, because fucking go ahead and try. But what I'm
Although,
getting,
like, could you blame them?
listen, come on. But what I'm getting at is just that it's nobody's business. That's personal to me. I do my craft for me because do you know who I love? Me. Have you met me? I'm great. So I do things for me because I like me. I don't need to blast it out to the universe. And the reason why I'm so very particular about this is because I know how to take down people's wards and take down people's protections and basically tangle up their spells. I think that that comes into just properly know understanding spell work. You have to be able to dissemble your own spells as well, and once you figure that out, you can figure out other people's pretty damn quickly. So to be that open with your spell work, for me, I'm always just kind of like I raise an eyebrow at it because I understand that any of my workings can be easily undone. And that comes into like hexing. Maybe people are like, I think I've been cursed and been hexed. Like, okay, did you undo it? And they're like, how do I do that? I'm like, how the hell do you not know how to do that? Like, this is spell work 101. Again, and that's where I'm finding the sharing part is kind of detrimental because people are sharing all the pretty things, but they're not actually showing practical things, which is undoing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, as well, at the end of the day, like the reason that that doesn't happen is because it doesn't get views and it doesn't get likes. People aren't interested in that. Um, but like, yeah, I mean, I just really don't believe that anyone should be pursuing any strand of religion or spirituality without, like, if their reasoning is not solely personal. Like, if
Yeah.
it's not about sort of like growing as a person or personal gain in some way, as like greedy as that sounds in quotation marks, I don't really understand why you're doing it. And by personal gain, I don't mean like material gain.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be material gain. If you are doing this just because you want to goad power over other people, then that's also gross.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely gross. I don't like that at all. I think that there's like, obviously, you're going to get into something whenever or however you're going to get into it, but like, morally and ethically, that's not great.
Yeah. And again, I do want to make it very clear. I have no interest in fucking with other people's spell work. I honestly can't be fucked. I just can't be bothered. Um, but it's one of those things that's in my it's in my grimoire. It's in my recipe book. So I don't understand how I understand that as one of my very basic understandings of my practices. So I don't understand why people would be willing to share that information when that is a very basic understanding. At least I'd hope that's a basic understanding. And if you don't understand how to undo soul work yourselves and other people's, then why are you even doing this? Why are you happening? It's like knowing how to drive a
Why are
car and
you
not
happening?
why are you happening? It's like knowing like, hey, I'm gonna drive this car, but I don't quite know how to brake. All right, cool. I can
Yeah.
drive it. It's like I
I
don't
mean, I
get
think
it.
that, yeah, I think that's just one of the basics and fundamentals of this sort of stuff. Like, you do need to know how to step back, how to retrace your steps a little bit, and how to, like, figure out what threads are loose and could be pulled very easily.
Yeah. And you almost want to have those fail safes as well for yourself.
Yeah,
Because we all
I
know
mean, I
that
do.
spell work can completely all go to hell in a handbasket.
Hmm.
We've all had it happen. Um, so you need to be able to know how to undo things. And honestly, you need to know how to undo it before you even do it. Like, I think I
Yeah,
see it
I
all.
mean, don't do something that you don't know how to take back. It's the same way, like, don't say something that you wouldn't not take back. Don't say something you wouldn't not take back. That doesn't make sense, does it? That's like a triple negative. Hold on.
Wow.
Okay, whatever. Don't say something because once you said it, it can't be taken back, and that rule applies here.
Oh Lord. But no, I think getting back to like the card at hand that we're trying to discuss here, the Hermit, is that keep your cards closer to your chest and don't use don't use what you do for clout. If you're gonna go out there in the universe and go on social media, you should want to help and teach.
Hmm.
And I think that I would hope that we're doing. Listen, I was about to say, I hope that we're doing that. Let's be realistic. We started this podcast to just bitch about things.
And that is what it has become, yes.
I mean, like our tarot talk, I believe is fantastic. I really enjoy what we do there, and then
Oh
these little
yeah.
feature episodes, just like, hey, what are we old assholes gonna just bitch about now?
Hmm.
But
I
a
mean,
lot
that's
of
literally what the feature episodes are. It's literally just shit talking. But you know what? I think that might be possibly entertaining to some people.
oh, I really do hope so because I do think that we do have a lot of insight, and again, oversharing is a bad thing. Now, when you're early in your practice, and this is where I like to kind of put in, you almost want to do a lot more research before doing. Like a lot of people try to rush it too much. And again, it's that slowing down process, that knowing yourself, that you kind of have to take inspiration from the hermit to just be
Hmm.
okay with being alone, being okay with knowing things that nobody else knows. And
Yeah.
you don't have to announce that you know something that nobody else knows
Hmm.
because that kind of defeats the
Because
purpose.
that it does. It kind of defeats the purpose of knowing that thing. Um, yeah, I mean, definitely take. I listen. I'll be taking inspiration from the hermit over the next couple of days because I have gone to concerts 2 nights in a row and I cannot speak. I cannot walk. I am done. And so I will become the hermit and I will learn my lesson.
Which is funny. I
And I
found like
won't do this again.
we're a lot more calm this episode. We're a little more like nuanced and a little like we're not like let's freak the
Yes,
fuck out
we
about
are a
something. It's
lot
just
more
like
calm.
no,
And that is because I cannot speak or think.
it's because we're both hung the fuck over is why.
Yeah, a little bit. Just a teensy little bit. Um,
Just a little screwed up.
yeah, just a little bit. But I think that added to the episode. I think the calmness of this episode has really brought out the energy of the hermit.
Yeah, it's because we got boot fucked real good this past week or
Yeah,
so.
just a little bit.
Everybody's
Just a
like,
little bit.
Are you okay? Like, because, like, you guys had to take a little bit of a break? Just like, no, we just wrecked our bodies, man.
Yeah,
Just
no,
being.
it's we just did immense physical damage to our bodies by accident. That is why
But
we took a break.
yeah, no, we just needed to let loose a little bit, let the hair down. And again, we have a bit of a new, was it a new tagline that kind of makes sense
We do.
for our podcast. Yeah, it's
We do. Oh my god, we do.
we do, and it's great.
Do you remember what it is? Word for word? I'm
I'm tr-
testing you right now.
I give me 1 second. Was it two
Hmm.
professional tarot readers running a very unprofessional tarot podcast?
Yes, that
Yes.
is congratulations. I think I mean I'm gonna agree with you. That holds the spirit of the message anyway because I can't remember either.
Yeah. So yeah, we are very unprofessional people, but at the very least, you're going to get very raw, unfiltered opinions, for better or for worse.
For better or for worse, yes. And I think that is literally all that this episode has been. So I hope you've all enjoyed it.
Yes, I think we're good. So let's get the fuck out of here.
Let's round it out with a sleepy little goodbye because I think both of us are gonna pass the fuck out.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Goodbye. What day is it? Friday. I will see you all on Monday.
You will see us
Um,
all on Monday. Check the description to find our
the
link
link
tree.
tree is in the
Listen, we're not
bio.
going to go with anything. You know who we are at this point.
Yeah, I have been Owen Kyla.
And it's Kateri. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.